Normally we start off with an email or question or something like that. Today we're going to start off with the principle. There is no principle in the universe more important than choice. The fact that we have the freedom to choose. Without it, we are nothing, little more than trees, furniture, rocks. Then with that choice, we can choose to feel loved, be loving, and all the rest that lead to happiness. But choice is most important. So we're going to talk about a natural extension of our having choice in everything. We have the ability to choose how we feel, what we think, how we behave. We can also choose our motivation, which is something we don't talk about very often. In fact, pretty sure it's not written in any of the books, but who knows? I forget what's written in the books. And that matters a lot. Sometimes there are things we just have to do, like we have to go to work. We have to feed our children when they're hungry. We have to fix the leak in the kitchen sink, and there are lots of have-tos. So in those cases, there's no choice really in our motivation, right? Because we have to. No, turns out there is a choice. Even when something urgently needs to be done, when it has to be done, we can choose to want to do it. Let me repeat. We can choose to want to do it, which changes everything. Example, work. I mentioned, sometimes we just have to go to work. But I can choose to want to go, even though, yeah, if I don't go to work, I'll be fired. But see, I still don't have to go. It's a choice. So as long as I'm going to choose to go, I just as well choose my motivation. I choose to want to go. I'm grateful for the income. I'm grateful for the opportunities to learn skills. I'm grateful to learn how to live with others. I'm grateful to learn how to love. Lots of reasons to want to go to work. Raising children, feeding them. I can view them as a burden when it's 4:30 in the morning and a little kid's crying in his crib, or I can choose to want to raise children and make them and thereby the world a happier place. I love it that I can raise a child in a way that I never saw myself as a child. Even fixing a leak in the sink, of course I want to. Instead of have to, I want to, because the alternative is unacceptable. I like having a sink in the house. I've lived in places for years at a time that didn't have sinks. And I can remember going to sleep at night and thinking, I'm going to be grateful for sinks and other porcelain items and lots of things that I didn't have when I lived back here. We can choose our motivation. We can choose how we feel. This is an email from, I think, a lady, I can't remember now, who wrote and said, we did some individual phone counseling, meaning she and I, about 6 years ago when I was thinking about going back to my ex after a divorce. I don't remember that, but she says we did. And then I later worked with a real love coach about how to date. You advised me that since I was already disengaged from my spouse, already divorced, I might be wiser to move forward to find somebody who would be more available for real love. That was challenging advice to take, but I did it. When I started dating, I made the real love book a prerequisite for anybody I was seriously considering. I asked the hard questions and weeded out the guys who would not have worked out. It was a miracle. I found an amazing man who I married 3 years ago. I just wanted to let you know how helpful real love and the books were in making my life better. What a nice thing to read. I got this just a few days ago. Anybody who is over the age of, 16, pretty much, who's really looking for a partner is kind of stupid. if they're not reading the dating book with the person they're dating by the second, third date, I mean, what are you dating for? If you're just looking to get laid, go to a bar, get somebody drunk, slip something in their drink and have sex with them. That's not hard. But if you're looking for a real partner, how could you possibly consider dating somebody who isn't interested in learning how to be one, which is what the dating book's about? If you hear the excuse, well, I'm not really a reader. Funny thing, we have it recorded on lots of different devices and ways, and it's on Amazon in forms I can't even remember the name of, that make it very easy to listen to. Here's somebody who proves that it's worth doing. This is from a lady who is just beginning to really live real love. She's happier, stronger, used to be really pretty weak. Been doing it for, I don't know, I think a year. I can't remember. She said, I've been frustrated with myself because it's been so hard for me to be loving with my husband, Harvey. I feel like I'm taking everything 10 times more personally now than I used to before I knew about real love. Yeah, that actually makes sense. As you wake up more from a lifetime of sleep, or more accurately, possibly coma, you're just becoming more aware of the truth about yourself and about others. So you will naturally see flaws and mistakes and mistreatment of you that you would not have seen before. Pain was all you knew before, so it was unremarkable. So when you were treated badly by your husband, you just sort of thought you had to put up with that, even though it still hurt and injured you. This waking up can be kind of annoying in the beginning because you're seeing stuff that you didn't see before, kind of like the lady whose eyes I operated on, who had been blind, and I operated on both of her eyes at the same time because she lived way out in the hills of North Georgia. They carried her in on 2 goats and a 2x4, and so I took the cataracts off her eyes, and she came back 2 weeks later. She could see beautifully out of both eyes, and first thing she said was, I'm so angry at you because, she said, because you've made my house filthy. It turns out she'd lived in a filthy house all those years, but she couldn't see it. And now she could see, and it was annoying to her how much cleaning she had to do to put up with living in her own house. So yeah, waking up and seeing things clearly can be annoying, but the alternative is to stay asleep in a coma, essentially a waking death. And who wants to do that? She continues, we went to an event together, but I felt like Harvey's punching bag all evening. He got mad at me for looking up restaurants wrong, for being slow to navigate, pretty much picked at everything. And I did worse because he was angry at me for it. In other words, as he got angry, I became fearful and I looked up restaurants and navigated worse. So listen slow, kid. Along with waking up, along with being more aware, comes some responsibility, increasing responsibility for your happiness. The more you know, the more you get to do, and the more you're responsible for doing. So you now know that anger and unhappiness in your marriage suck. So why live with it? You get to say something about it. In fact, you'd be really wise to say something every single time he's angry, like you do with your kids. And you've seen a revolution with your kids as you've implemented the principle of zero tolerance for anger, with the exception that you don't really get to apply consequences to your husband quite the same as to your kids, although I'm sure you've been tempted on occasion to send him to his room. You don't want the poison of anger in your marriage. You get to tell him that, not suggest it, not tell him you read it in a book. you just calmly, with no irritation, get to say something like this. Not these exact words, in your own style. Harvey, the way you're speaking to me right now is angry. It's not loving. It's not loving, and I don't feel loved. And I don't really like it very much either. But I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not stopping you. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm telling you how it affects me. And I will continue to tell you when you get angry like this, because I'm not really willing to live with this poison in our marriage anymore. You get to say that, and you get to say it every time. She wrote, granted, he was hungry, basically impossible for him to be kind and loving while he's hungry. The technical response to that would be, you got to be kidding me. Then he has to grow up about this. I mean, that's the emotional state of a child. Children cry in the back seat when they can't have their Cheerios. Hunger makes children cranky. Yeah, I'll buy that for a 3-year-old, but not with somebody who's 33. And here, it's not intentional on your part, but you're defending him. Now, I'm not suggesting that you attack him to make up for that. Hungry or not, you still get to deliver the message. You're being angry, and I don't like it. And when he says, well, I'm just hungry. Okay, then you pretty much know how long it takes for you to get hungry. And if you want me to put a power bar or whatever in my purse, then I'd be happy to do that. And we're still not doing angry because I don't like it. You say, I knew that intellectually, but today it hurt. All I heard was, when he was angry, was, you're stupid and you're an idiot. And yeah, honey, that is what he was telling you. And you get to tell him that. Add it to what I just said. When you talk to me like this, I feel stupid. I feel like you're telling me that you're stupid. And when he says, because he will, oh, I didn't mean to tell you you're stupid. Well, okay, I believe you that you didn't mean to, but you didn't mean not to either. And your tone of voice just screams, you're stupid. And I don't feel like your partner. And I don't believe you really want that to be the case between us. So you get to tell him the truth about how something affects you. And if you tell him that consistently, it will make a bigger difference than you might imagine. But you can't tell him that once in a while, or it's just a gamble. And each time you don't tell him when he's critical and unkind and angry, he essentially takes it as you're giving him permission for him to be angry. And you really kind of don't want to go down that road. This is a message from that I got from somebody whose name I don't know, after they read a free report on the website. They said, interesting the timing on this email, and I hope you'll forgive the question. Interesting how often it is that people begin their emails that way. Let me apologize several times before I ask you the question I want to ask you. Timing, hope you'll forgive me. Clearly there's an issue of esteem going on here, but that's kind of just rumbling in the background. She says, I'm the emotional, I think it's a she, I can't remember. I'm the emotional engine in my dating relationship. And we're coming up on 2 years since we started. 2 years is a long time to date without making a long-term commitment. And when you've been dating somebody, if you're not 16, for 2 years and there's no commitment, that usually spells really significant problems in the relationship. On many occasions, I've received letters from people who say, my boyfriend and I we're not married yet. I want to get married, but we've been together for 17 years. So let's back up here. You've been together for 17 years, you want to get married, and you're not, but you're settling for not when you want it. That's a pretty deep and usually irreparable problem. She continues, this morning, I'm agonizing about sending the breakup letter that I've had written for several days. It explains that I don't feel loved and how that is turning me, oh, it's from a guy, into a man full of disappointment. I have felt the scale of giving and receiving has been firmly maxed out on the give side for me for probably the last 9 months. I've been giving, she's been receiving, and she doesn't give anything. No, in the beginning, if somebody is the, as you put it, emotional engine, being the primary giver, that's actually to be expected. That's a fairly normal pattern in real love relationships. One person learns about real love, becomes the giver, the other person begins to like it and then begins to reciprocate, or to love also would be a better way to say that, which you can learn more about if you read the dating or the marriage book. But, you know, if it goes on and on, like you said, 9 months of no giving on her part, or a year, it gets kind of tiring. And if you're not, if it's a girlfriend, you don't have a committed relationship, and it gets tiring to the point of you got to wonder what in the world you're doing in this relationship. He continues, now that I remember it's a he. My question is, I recognize that I can only change me. Good point. You've been doing some reading. I don't want my happiness to be tied to the attention that I receive from Jill, my girlfriend, or my worth depending on her validation. My current emotions have hurt rather than helped my goals of intimacy and trust, because I'm getting, you know, tired of this and kind of exhausted. Even if this relationship is meant to end, how can I change? How can I relax? What expectations should I have toward her that should drive my attitude? I'd very much like to set myself up for success in this relationship, or a future one. Really good questions, by the way. So the first decision is whether it's possible for her to learn to be more loving. Is she interested in learning? You're going to find that out in a pretty big hurry by simply asking her if she'll read the dating book or the marriage book. In your case, I say the marriage book, not because you're pushing her to get married, but after two people have been living together for 2 years, they're pretty married. And if she's not ready, if she says, well, you know, I'm not sure I want to, you know, read a book or, you know, do any work, then you'd have to be an idiot to stay in a relationship like that. A non-committed relationship with somebody who won't read a book about how to have a relationship. Don't pass go, don't collect $200, just get out. Then you do whatever you can on conference calls or with coaches or whatever you choose. There's tons of references, thousands actually, on the website that give you options, and find the love that you need in your own life. If you've had enough already, you would not have stayed in this relationship for 2 years. So you need to find a whole lot more for yourself. And there's an entire page on the Real Love site about just how to find real love. It lists at least 10, if I can remember, sources of finding it. But if she is interested in learning about real love, which is unlikely, or she would have before now, then you make the pursuit of real love an absolute passion for the both of you. There is nothing you could do that would be more productive or fun. Oh, well, we're tired at the end of a day. Well, you're going to be really tired at the end of 5 years of an uncommitted relationship too. There's nothing more important you can do. You can let all kinds of things go, including, well, maybe not leaking sinks. Very few things matter as much, are as urgent or as important, which are two different qualities, as attending to your relationship. New subject. This is a woman in real love who has had quite a few relationships with men, more than average. She has a severe handicap. She's pretty. That's a problem for women. And intelligent, and bright as in sparkly. So men want her, and they'll appear or they'll try to appear to be anything to get her. Yeah, well, that's a problem. When women are pretty enough and men are wealthy enough, that's the usual pattern. It can go the other way around. In my case, it was that I was too pretty. But if women are pretty and men are wealthy enough, people don't see who they are. They don't see them as people. They see them as something they can get for themselves. So she's had a lot of men pretend with her, and she's been fooled a lot. Her last boyfriend fought real love, fought her getting advice from me, and did absolutely as little as he could in real love, just enough to make her feel like, well, but he is showing a little interest. That'd be like a football player showing up to practice one day a week, looking like he's a little interested. Well, there isn't a coach on the planet who'd keep him on the team. And if we have any sense, we wouldn't entertain a potential partner who showed that little interest in learning how to be a partner. Finally, he said that he couldn't live with her trusting me. This isn't something she's writing. He said he couldn't live with her trusting me more than she trusted him. Now think about this dilemma. He couldn't deal with what I told him. I explained to him that our roles were simply different. In fact, dramatically different. It wasn't about trusting somebody more. It's about trusting them to do what? So I trust my neurosurgeon to do my back surgery more than I trust Donna to do my back surgery. Following? This isn't hard. This isn't complicated. It's about what you trust somebody to do. I was her, emotionally speaking, parent, whereas her boyfriend is her potential partner. Those roles aren't confusing at all. If they are confusing to you, give me a call and I'll explain the difference. When it came to personal issues with her pain and healing, she trusted the healing love and guidance of her father, her spiritual and emotional father. In this case, me. Could have been somebody else. I don't care. It's not about me. And that's how it should be. My healing could only help her become a better partner. But he just couldn't let go of this bone. And he saw me as competition for his role as a partner. I already have a partner. Why would I want her? She needed a father badly in order just to stay a healthy person, much less be a partner herself. And he refused to let her have it. And she refused to let it go. It became impossible. Comparison, I mentioned my neurosurgeon. I mean, what if she had cancer and needed her oncologist for treatment? What if her boyfriend resented the fact that she needed another man for something he could not give? What if he demanded that she give up her oncologist? Well, she'd have to be stupid because she needs him for that. She needs her oncologist to treat her cancer and her boyfriend to be her partner. They're different roles. When I take my car in to get fixed, Donna doesn't go, "Oh, so you don't trust me?" That's how laughable this situation is with this woman and her boyfriend. They're just different jobs. And yet he just kept demanding that she give up a source of healing she needed. And she wouldn't, so he left her. He actually terminated the relationship. I mean, they were weeks from getting married. Now, is this the whole truth? No, not really. That's just kind of a summary of this particular issue. He really wanted to own her. That's the real issue. He didn't value her for being her. He saw her as being pretty, as being sexual, as being bright and chatty and entertaining, and he wanted to own that. And he knew that I would get in the way. That's the real truth. It wasn't about jealousy. It was about my interfering with his ownership. Let's see. I think this is from her. Should have read ahead. Now her. She's left the relationship with him, and she wrote me. She said, I started dating, meeting guys from online dating sites, and I'm being really direct. And I'm getting to no, meaning I'm getting to the answer of no, either from me or them, much faster, which is, it turns out, way more fun. I've spent all my life being afraid that somebody that I might date or was dating wouldn't like me. Now I don't care. I want to find out faster if they don't like me. So I put on my profile, my dating profile, deal breakers, similar to the profile that you helped me to write. She's talking to me. Good for you, because I helped her make her profile pretty clear. No, until you're my long-term committed partner, I'm not going to have sex with you. No, I'm not just going to be a temporary companion for you. And yeah, I'm interested in a no-kidding relationship, a true partnership. She says, I'm a lot braver now. The experience that I had with, my recent ex-boyfriend, with your guidance, helped me realize that I need to be bolder sooner when I'm letting guys know what I'm looking for. Yeah, you really do. And I'm so proud of you. I can hardly stand it. She said, I called Frank once, another real love coach, and he was great. I told a potential date that I didn't want to kiss even on the first date. I didn't hear back from the guy. Frank told me that, and bless Frank, he says this very well. He said, some guys are going to find me too much trouble to date, which translates into, this is Frank translating for her, in other words, you're going to be too much trouble for them to get laid. And this is now back to her words. I just loved hearing that. It makes it so clear. I don't want to just be an object. Hallelujah. I mean, you've got it. Sad that so many men are on dating sites just looking to get laid, but it's true. There it is. Got to deal with the truth. So to all of you women who are dating, you want to get laid, like I said, easy. You can get a guy to participate by just your breathing. That's actually sometimes optional. But if you want a real partner, you have to find out whether he really wants a real partner, and his words aren't even close to enough. And that is why you don't have sex with somebody until you marry them, or engage in some permanent commitment to each other in a relationship. When you get married, that's none of my business, because it's just too distracting. I can't count how many emails I've gotten from women who have said, I had this great guy, we were having this great relationship, and then they send me an email that says, I got one just the other day, from a lady who said, and then he just disappeared. And I said, I'm just spitballing, but was that shortly after you had sex with him 1, 2, 3 times? Well, yeah. How did you know that? Because he got what he wanted and then he disappeared. And he's moved on to the next one. And we'll move on to the next one and the next one. And then when he's, 60 years old and lonely and miserable, he's going to wonder how he ended up that way. But you won't, because you won't have fallen for that trick. New subject. This is from a man who has been doing real love for a couple of years. It took him a while to warm up. He started at outright skepticism and mocking of real love. That's a pretty meager start. To intellectually understanding it, to a greater emotional and then spiritual understanding of real love, and then finally to learning to actually love people. Like, no kidding. It has been an amazing thing to watch in this guy. I mean, he's just grown up right before our eyes. He wrote just a couple days ago. He said, I'm finding opportunities to love people all over the place, everywhere I go. He said, I was at work. I was waiting for a lady in the break room to finish washing a cup in the sink. And I just asked her about her day. she apologized that her cup was so dirty. I asked her why she would apologize for that. She said, well, because it's taking a long time to clean, and I know that you're having to wait. And he said, I replied, yeah, but it gives me an opportunity to spend time talking to you. Now, if he was hitting on her, I promise she would have known that. But he wasn't. He was genuinely caring about her, telling her to, don't worry, don't rush, just calm down, wash your cup, and I'm enjoying talking to you. He said she loved it. This just came out of my mouth, out of nowhere, without thinking, which is, for him, really quite an accomplishment. But now I can see it as a natural extension of what I've been doing with people in group and on calls and everywhere. And I think it's pretty cool. Me too. Very. Bruce and Sylvie. Bruce, Bruce has been taking the stage lately. Donna tells me he's 4 now. I can't get, in my mind, he's 3. Oh, I know. When this story happened, he was 3. There. I can make any excuse I want to. Bruce, age 3 at the time, his mother said, made a magnet creation that he brought to show me. And I said, well, look at that. You have a creative mind. Notice his mother didn't praise him. She just said, well, that's creative. And he said, yes, I do. And it reminds me that I love Sylvie, his sister. His mother said, too sweet. Me too. I'm pretty sure that when I was age 3, I wasn't saying that the things I did reminded me to love my siblings. Bruce, again, age 3, I think, at the time, was building a tower. Yeah, he had to have been, because Sylvie was 4. Was building a tower in the living room when Sylvie, age 4, was coloring at the kitchen table. Bruce proudly came in and said, Sylvie, come and see what I made. Now remember, Sylvie's just as busy as he is. Sylvie took a pause, thought, put down her artwork and said, okay. She followed him to the living room and attentively listened to him describe his creation and said, wow, that is really great. Then she went back to finishing what she was working on. She just took the opportunity to stop what she was doing and love her brother. If only we adults were that thoughtful. This is from a woman who has been involved in real love for years. She said, I just got off the phone with Rachel, another woman in real love, and I feel the need to email you. Her description of how she's loving her husband was so moving to me that it's making me question how I'm loving my husband. Well, how brilliant of you, and courageous that you'd be willing to look at it. You continue. I don't want to compare myself to another person. I just want to hear the truth from you about how I'm doing and what I can do differently. Rachel talked about interning at an intervention recently where you told the wife in the couple to let her husband be himself, that the world needs him to be him, not more like her. You know both of us pretty well. So, do I allow my husband to be himself? Sometimes, but there are a lot of times you don't. Now, there are things he needs to change. His fear of other people's opinions, his lack of consistently being responsible, for example. But see, those are not things about him. That's not who he is, irresponsible and afraid of other people's opinions. Those are the ways he behaves when he's afraid. And he does have to get rid of those behaviors in order to be him. So like I told the woman in the intervention that you just mentioned, let her husband be him. But with fear, we can't do that. So helping him with those things, your husband, is not a problem. Where you don't allow him to be himself is when you get impatient and irritated when you talk to him. You continue. Do I beat him over the head with my lists and disappointment when he doesn't get things done? Lists are sometimes necessary. Donna and I exchange lists regularly, especially in his case, because without lists, he tends not to do what he said he'd do. But the disappointment, yeah, that's beating him over the head. And believe me, if you're disappointed at all, he feels it. You continue. How do I hold him accountable and be accepting of who he is? Procrastinating and irresponsible with money and so on at the same time. I sometimes wonder if it would be easier if he wasn't doing real love also, because then I wouldn't have expectations that he should be doing better, or have expectations that he would see when he's behaving like a victim and get over it. What do I need to do to move on to the next level of being loving toward him? I'd start with one thing: a zero tolerance for irritation, ever. That sounds really simplistic. No, it's really not. I didn't quit narcotics until I had a zero tolerance for them. People who are alcoholics tend not to do well until they establish a zero tolerance. If an alcoholic says, "Well, I'll just have a beer or two, maybe, with dinner," every alcoholic in the room would be falling on the floor laughing. Same is true with you and anger. It becomes habitual, and it gets to the point where you don't recognize it. None. So what do you do when you become irritated? You come home and you discover he hasn't done a single thing on the list. Then you go and you call Rachel, you send me an email, you text a friend, you do whatever it takes until you can speak to your husband with zero irritation. You see him as needing correction and motivation instead of needing love and occasional accountability or instruction. He does need occasional accountability and instruction. I know him. Without it, he does tend not to do the things he's supposed to do, with sometimes pretty significant effects on your family. But it's about sitting down and asking him what he's done. And the instant you ask him what he's done, he can see the difference between what he promised to do, because you're going to have every single thing that he promised to do timed. You're going to do this thing by 12:05 p.m. on Friday. He can see the difference between what he's done and what's on the list. And when he makes excuses, you say, well, then that's something you'll have to plan into your scheduling so that you can still get it done by 12:05. But if you're the slightest bit annoyed, oh, you're done. 1 ounce of irritation reverses 100 pounds, or if you're from Europe, 50 kilos roughly of love. It just kills it. I can tell you from personal experience, I figured that if I was nice to Donna 9 times in a row, that the 10th time, surely she could just grow up and take a little irritation. No, it turns out she doesn't like irritation ever. I know, how completely unreasonable. No, it's not. In a loving relationship, there is no place for, and I had a man just yesterday tell me, I wasn't really irritated, I was annoyed. Hello, help me. Is that better? Where is irritated and annoyed on the scale? So, no, disappointed, irritated, annoyed, frustrated, impatient, nothing. It'll just kill your relationship. That's what I'd suggest as your first step. When you've conquered that, write me again. Got an email from a piano teacher. She said, I was feeling defensive and victim yesterday when a client told me that if I canceled any more appointments, they would find another teacher. I felt attacked, even as I realized that it was ridiculous to feel attacked. I floundered and didn't know how to respond and temporarily lost my sanity. I wanted to explain that I understood, but I got too defensive. And I ended up sort of listening and sort of defending myself. That's like having half water and half mud. I'd like to know how I could have reacted differently for the future. What do you think of this? What if I look straight into the person's eyes and listen to their complaint? When they've explained it, I simply say, I understand, that's perfectly reasonable, which in the case of the person I was talking about was reasonable. I shouldn't have canceled that many appointments. And then I say, thank you for telling me. And if there's something that they're asking me to do differently, then I can add something about what I will do differently and ask if that meets their needs. I need to show that I hear them. I need to keep my response short and simple and make no excuses. I need to make a suggestion for how I can improve my performance and ask what they think. So that's what I'm thinking to use as my guideline. What do you think? I think you should write a book. It's a miracle. It is a miracle when we admit that we're wrong and not loving toward people. In this case, you don't need to kiss them. Just say, what could I do for you differently? I was wrong. And this is in a workplace kind of environment. This is amazing stuff. It can be applied everywhere. I got an email from a young man in his 20s, and he casually said this to his mother the other day. His mother is the one who's reporting to me what he said. He said to her, "This is bloody great, this real love. It makes you always happy. And if you're not happy, you don't even have to worry about it because you know you'll be happy again soon." That's pretty good. Pretty mature for a kid in his mid-20s. I wasn't even close to that in my mid-20s. And yeah, it really is pretty bloody great. Months ago, a lady came to see me for an intervention without her husband, who just couldn't be bothered by this real love foolishness. Translation, I'm a big tough man and I don't need anything, and it scares me that I might need something. My marriage is not happy. My wife is obviously not happy. My children are becoming more demonstrative with their unhappiness, but no way am I going to admit that I have a problem. So she writes and says, I don't even remember how this started, but I just spent hours talking to Harry about real love. He was asking me what his most prominent getting and protecting behaviors were and which forms of imitation love he seeks out. Well, that's kind of amazing, isn't it? I mean, he had no interest in real love, but it's not surprising because you are becoming different and he can't help but notice that. How could he not be curious about this new power in you, real power? You continue. We read the Real Love group guidelines because I felt like they were pretty good, synopsis of real love. And we agreed that currently his most common getting and protecting behaviors are attacking and running. And we could actually talk about it without anybody taking anything personally. Like, yay, yeah, big yay, and more. You continue. Of course, I had to make fun of myself, and I told him that I was super good at pretty much all of them. Anyway, particularly before real love, I did attacking, clinging, and acting like a victim, and maybe running the least, but still did that. Anyway, it's just cool that we can talk about this like it's nothing. Yeah, in fact, it's kind of because I know you, and really secondhand, I know him pretty well. It's hard to believe. It's very cool. You continue. Then he ended up bringing up how he wasn't very coachable, not very teachable. That's impressive. Not many people could admit that. And you're right, he's not very coachable, although he's demonstrating some interest in learning here. You said we talked about that for a little bit. And then he revised his statement. He said, no, actually, maybe comparatively, I'm not as coachable, but I think I could be. I just have a hard time with people who tell me to go against my gut. That's a really important phrase. I don't know all of his history, but he's saying, translation for you, that somebody or many people have controlled him and he hated it. So now he resists advice against his gut because he doesn't want to repeat that feeling. Regrettably, when most people say, well, I just go with my gut. What they're talking about is instinct, which is, or intuition, which is a summary of all of their life's experience. And for most people who've lived with nothing but fear, fear, fear all their lives, when they say, I'm going to go with my gut, well, they're saying, I'm going to go with my fear. So in that case, going with their gut usually doesn't work out very well. You said, then we talked about past mentors and how they had always had something at stake for themselves with him. There was something they needed from him, respect, appreciation, and so on. And then that led me to talk about you, and me, and how it was nice that there was nothing I could possibly do for you. Yeah, that's pretty important to identify. You continue. You're already happy. And he started thinking, and he said, like, maybe sometime I'd want to talk to him. Who would have thought you'd ever hear those words? Hasn't happened yet, but he's really curious about these changes in you. The greatest book he will ever read on the subject of real love is written right across your forehead and in your eyes. No kidding. So, pretty important thing for you to remember. You are his real love manual. You are his tutorial. You are his videotape. You are his guidelines for real love. Living guidelines. You said, I could hardly contain myself. I was like, I know you would like that. Anyway, I'm kind of planting seeds. I talked about it and how things are different for me. You're the pioneer in the family, kid. Not only are you the living book, but you're blazing trails for everybody. As he sees the truth of your increased peace and power, he'll become willing to consider possibilities that would otherwise have remained closed to him. You say, I'm not perfect at any of this by any means, but I'm surprising myself all over the place. And the kids are surprising me. Every single time I text you and say, what do I do with the kids? And I go, do what you tell me. It works. Yeah, it works because I'm just telling you, teaching you principles, as opposed to teaching you how to manipulate or intimidate your kids, which is what most people do. But I couldn't be happier for you. It's working because you trust. You really mean it. Most people say, oh, I want to be happier. No, they want somebody to come down and magically make them happier. But they don't want to exercise the effort. They don't want to acquire a different perspective. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to be honest and examine who they are and take the steps necessary so that they can be happier. They don't want the miracle that comes as a result of learning and doing the right things. They want just magic for a wand to be waved. So no, they don't really want to be happier. Like the guy who lies on the couch and eating Cheetos and says, I want to run that 400 meters at the Olympics. Yeah, probably not. I'm just roughing, looking at you, thinking you probably don't really want to. You continue. Things that used to just really annoy me are now funny or cute or neutral. Like tonight, my 3-year-old son did something that made my husband frustrated, but I thought it was just kind of funny, and I pointed that out. And my husband didn't take any offense with what I said. So listen to what you just said. He thinks he's not coachable? No, he really is more coachable than he thinks. Just not yet in a more formal teaching setting where somebody could hurt him. But he's listening to you, and he's watching you, and that's coachable. Then, you say, because of my history of being an idiot when I bring up real love, I asked him if he was annoyed with me talking about it so much, and he said, no. He said, you're different now. Then he laughed at me, and he said, before, whenever you talked about real love, you were oozing with all that other stuff, the clinging, the acting like a victim, attacking, and, he's right. And then he added, but you're not doing that now. Honey, that's just a miraculous story. Again, you are the real love book to him. You're the entire thing, the book, the everything. and it's working. So you say, we had fun talking about real love, about getting and protecting behaviors, about our past, what I've learned, how I've changed. We talked for 2 hours. My happy word vocabulary is getting better. Yeah, you think? Kind of fun, huh? You said, I feel hopeful and giddy. I feel like before real love, I dug myself into a hole and I was stuck. I feel like my whole process, pre-intervention, was me filling in the hole and getting myself out of the hole I was in. Not exactly a fun process, is it? And goes nowhere. Then you say, now I feel like, wow, I can take a walk in the woods instead of living in a hole and constantly emptying and filling it up. Or I can go canoeing or hiking or whatever, emotionally speaking. Not that I don't have downs. She asks, have you seen the movie Tangled? Yeah, I have grandchildren, so I couldn't avoid it. I feel like Rapunzel, who just got let out of her tower and is going through these mood swings between this is so awesome and can I actually do this? Anyway, I was just excited and I wanted to tell you. My husband just came over here laughing at me saying, I know what you're doing. You're telling him about how I'm doing, aren't you? And he laughed. And in the past, he would have felt violated or suspicious or whatever. This is just a lovely story. You are the key. And it's a beautiful example for all of us who are hearing your story. Woman came here for an intervention, and she said, I used to be defensive with my husband all the time. Then I came to see you, and you showed me what love felt like. Can't believe the difference. I'm seeing my sweet little husband. She didn't used to refer to him as either sweet or little, like I never did before. You've shown me who he really is. I've seen him through your eyes now. So now that old hostility seems foreign to me, even disgusting. That's a really kind of important word. Our lives really change the most, not when we just know what's good, but when what we used to do seems disgusting or repellent or yuck to us. That's when we don't go back to it. Example, she says, back to her. The other night I sat next to him on the couch and touched him. No response, like I wasn't there. I thought, oh, well, he must be thinking about something else, and he gets to be him. And I kept my arm around him because I knew he needed to be loved. By the way, when I read that, well, he must be thinking about something else, I used entirely the wrong tone of voice. She was more upbeat than I just did. I knew he needed to be loved. I had it to give, and he could receive it in any way he wanted to. I was giving the gift. He could do whatever he wanted. I knew something was wrong, but as I probed gently to figure it out, he actually seemed more annoyed, so I just stayed silent. Now, you don't know who she is, but for this particular woman to stay silent, parting of the Red Sea is a small affair. Impossible for her to stay silent. I'm kidding, but this is huge because in the past she would have just kept poking and prodding and kept at it until he finally blew up. Instead, she continues now, I kept touching him. It felt so good to not be insisting on a certain response, just loving him with no need of my own. Later in bed, I held him, and he told me that he had had a headache for hours. And I thought, oh my gosh, so that was it. And in the past, I would have attacked him for not responding to me as I sat on the couch with him. And then he never would have told me about the headache. Then he would have left the room and we would have had a perfectly awful night, as we've had more times before than I'd like to talk about. I would have ruined everything by pushing him, but this time I shut up. And he told me when he was ready to tell me, not before. And it was perfect. I am not believing who I'm becoming. I'm caring about him. I feel like a partner, feel like feeling loved. I like loving my husband. It's just so sweet. This is trusting for everybody. I get asked this question probably more than any other. What does trust look like? Like this? She trusted. Trusted what? You trusted that I still loved you no matter what he did. You remembered that I love you. You trusted your husband that something was going on that you couldn't see. You trusted that love would work better than anger or prying or controlling. And look how it turned out. Trust is action, not words. You trusted, and it turned out beautifully. My daughter Chloe, last one. My daughter Chloe hates going to church. She splits time between me and her father, and he's never been to church in his life, but I like to go. So how do I handle her giving me a hard time every single Sunday? Pretty simple. We have secular school where we learn geometry and calculus and history and reading and all that stuff. And the government doesn't hesitate to make it the law that you have to go to secular school. They don't have any laws about spiritual education. They leave that to you. And if you think that it's important for your daughter to have a spiritual education, that's your choice. You get to set those rules. So it's really simple. If you live in my house, this is what you would say to your daughter in whatever style you choose. You keep my rules. If you don't want to keep the rules, then you can live with dad. And no anger. Now, it turns out that the girl does not want to live full-time with her dad. So now she goes to church with her mother, but she still complains. Then you've got to have the conversation with her again. Going means going with no complaining. We have the same rules at home regarding chores or schoolwork or anything else. When I say, have you done your chores and done your homework? The law in our home is doing it means doing it without whining, because the whining is just a poison in the house. Same with going to church. I've decided you need a spiritual education, and as long as you live here, I get to decide that. So you just go, like you go to school during the weekday. Now, you as a mother can make it more interesting. You can, for example, give her a question from real life, a question that affects her relationship with her friends or her own happiness. And it's her assignment to find an answer to your question in something that somebody says during the church meeting. We've done that with our kids, and they tend to pay more attention. Just as, that's what they do with tests at school. Or you can provide the discussion when she comes home. You can ask her teacher at church what was the subject, and then talk to her about it when she gets home. So you do have the right to require that she goes, and you can make it a great deal more fun for her. We've had quite a variety of really fun questions this evening, but underlying all of them is the same process we talk about over and over again. None of these techniques, none of these answers matter spit if we don't find the unconditional love that we need in our lives, trust it, remember it, and then learn to share it with other people. If we do that, then pretty much every other technique or thing that we learn in our lives is built on a stronger foundation, and we'll be far happier. Count on it. We'll see you next week.